And both of you touch upon our next topic, which is finance. So we keep on hearing a lot in the news currently about inflation, the cost of living, energy prices, all these are going up, and all these are proving to be an increasing burden for many families, young people and workers. Vis-a-vis the financial issues which the current generation of youth and young people are facing, what do you think are the challenges which young people are currently facing, which previous generations may not have been facing in the past?
I would say many now, especially since the pandemic. I mean, I can speak about France because this is where I was staying during the pandemic, and we saw a lot of initiatives to feed the students. So just feed them during the pandemic, because many did not have the opportunity to go to work if they had a work beside the studies, and sometimes they miss the money, the income that they usually have. So if they don't have money, they don't have the possibility to go shopping. They have to go and have some help from the state or from associations. So they are lining up in the streets to have free meals or those kind of things. And it went big, So if you have finance issues that does not even allow you to eat properly, can you imagine on just renting some place or having enough money to buy books to study or those kind of things? This is huge.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, even in Malta, the cost of living is continuously rising, and the work that youths that are still studying do is not enough, obviously, to sustain them. And there's a lot of economic insecurity right now, especially in young people. It's risking, obviously, their confidence to provide for themselves and for their families, those that need to, and it's also creating a lot of mental health issues, because it's something that is quite troubling when you can't afford to feed yourself or to buy, like you said, books to study, to feed your family, to feed even to feed your pets.
Yeah.
It's something that creates a lot of stress and anxiety. So yeah, it's something that definitely needs to be worked on a national level.
Yeah, I think so.
And once again, the next question has been preempted in terms of we touched upon rent.
Yeah.
And rent prices and the challenges which youth are facing in terms of accommodation. It's no secret that many young people in this day and age yearn to live by themselves and be more independent from their family, their parents, and have a bit of more liberty in that aspect. However, in at least the case of Malta, and I would imagine in other countries as well, across Europe and across the EU, there are many youths and young people who end up living for an even longer period of time with their parents and end up leaving their houses at least, I think the last statistic was at least 30.
Yeah.
And that is coupled with rise in rent prices and housing becoming more unaffordable as opposed to affordable. Many youths are opting to leave their country and their country of origin and go work and live abroad. And it's no longer feasible to rent or even buy your own accommodation, by yourself at least, in terms of having to live with someone else.
Yeah.
With all these challenges, would both of you still say that it can be still considered to be worthwhile to live alone and independently at any age?
From my personal experience, I lived with my parents until last year. I was the last of the 5 children to leave my family house. My parents are still there, but I was the last one. And yeah, I think I did not reach the point where I had the financial stability to be able to live. I think most of people wait to have a stable job and to be sure they will be able to pay the rent and everything. I'm not sure that in all European countries people are considering going abroad to find a job, but I think in all European countries, at least mostly Western Europe, there is this problem about thinking to have your own place when you are struggling for many other things financially. And I think students are usually going in big cities for the studies, those kind of things. And this is in those big cities, and the prices are getting crazy. So when you find a job, you made your studies in big cities, and this is usually where you find your first job. You cannot rent something in the city, which creates some precarity for sure.
I believe myself that the question is very subjective, because it depends on the person's financial situation, it depends on their career, their study area, for example. Because there are certain areas, for example, with regards to ICT, it's something that's quite a sector which gives you a number of job opportunities and financial security. With regards to other aspects of society, for example, mentioning specifically arts and culture, it's something that's a bit more difficult to do. So even the financial situation of a person and whether they can get help from their parents, for example. Last year we had a study specifically on this as KNZ with the National Youth Agency that focused on youths in housing.
Okay.
And most of youths that responded said that the major problem with them finding them leaving the house was financial burdens, and there were a number of them that got help from their parents, for example. So it's not everyone that is able to get help from their parents to move
can
out
afford it
and to avoid it. So it's very subjective, and you need to look at different groups, different communities. That's my take on it.
Yeah, but I think it's getting complicated because if we look, I don't know, 10 years back, 20 years back, this was not the same situation. I mean, people did not stay until this age in their parents' house. Mostly.
Most definitely. To now move on to what we've been talking about is work. Youths, young people finding work, youths being in the workforce, youths having a job which is sustainable. In a world which is now we're in a post-pandemic world, essentially, we're moving on from COVID, we are amidst a war in Ukraine, and there are many challenges popping up across all of Europe and across the world. For both of you, what is your outlook towards the job opportunities which youths may come across, and also the job market in general, which ought to be at the disposal of young people?
That's a tough one. I mean, the situation was already complicated after COVID. After Ukraine war, this is not finished yet, so we are currently in it. It's probably getting even more complicated.
It's very difficult to say. It's something that's still evolving. It's something that needs a bit of a smooth transition, but it's very difficult to get a smooth transition. But hopefully the situation improves in the near future, because it's definitely needed. I think that jobs, especially during the pandemic, were hit in a very big way. Especially, like I said, in certain aspects. For example, in the mentioning arts and culture, again, it was something that took a very, very big hit. So it's something that now in a post-pandemic reality, we need to transition a bit smoothly so that the situation eventually gets better. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
And when we have a particular context like this one, can be a pandemic, can be a war, we see that the job offer suffer from it in general, but usually you have also this phase where other job opportunities or other possibilities open up, and I mean the world will adapt for sure, but once again probably young people will suffer from it at some point. This is part of the game when we have those kind of global events. But yeah, I think the young people our age will suffer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very good point. I think whilst there were laws in certain spheres of work, there were definitely some openings. Obviously, not the scale didn't balance.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very good point to mention, and we should learn from that, because I think if this certain situation were to repeat itself, we need to learn from it and see which jobs, which work opportunities are best suited to the situation.
Yeah.
For example, technology-related jobs were obviously a bit more needed. For example,
Yeah, they increased a lot.
Yeah. For example, something that I didn't think about at the time was live streaming. For example, our vice president does live streaming services for certain events, and it's something that had a very big boom during and after the pandemic. So I think it's something to learn from, for sure.
Yeah.
No easy questions, but the solutions to them aren't difficult to introduce. We, however, now to a even more difficult note. In light of the challenges which young people are facing, as we continue to see with the rise in inflation, cost of living is going up, energy prices are going up, electricity and water bills are going up. How would you say that the current economic and financial situation is impacting the ability of youths to grow and develop even further in their lives and careers?
Well, if we speak about impact, I would say enormously.
We could be here till tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, youth was sacrificed in
Not
this
just
period.
youth.
Yeah, but youth
But-
mainly. With the pandemic, a lot. Considering all the events that are running after, this is not helping to, take the step back and take the step up and get back on your feet. But I mean, they suffered from everywhere, I would say. The school, they suffered. Financially, they suffered.
Health-wise, obviously.
Yeah.
That was something that took a very big hit. Even especially mental health during the pandemic, it was, and even now after the transition, it's something that created a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. First of all, for the general health, about getting infected, passing it on to someone else, especially if you're living with an elderly person, someone who's vulnerable. And it's something that for me it was quite stressful, even if, for example, you have to stay in quarantine and you need to stop from your life for those 2 weeks to it's a pause.
Yeah, and social life
As well.
for young people suffered a lot. I think also when you are young, this is a period where you are experiencing things. You go out, you realize new experiences, and I cannot imagine. I mean, I already passed, I think, this period at some point when the pandemic hits. I finished already studies in university, and I started to work a little, so it had some impact on me. But all this generation, which was in high school or in university, this is the period you are supposed to experience a lot of things. And I mean, 2 years sacrificed. This is really hard.
Especially when considering that certain people don't have the most ideal home situations. So, for example, when it comes to cases of domestic violence or people in the LGBTQ community that are, for example, discriminated against even at home, it's something that took a very big hit on mental health.
Yeah. I think this is where also association during the pandemic took over, the responsibility of helping people, feeding them, allowing them to find a place maybe to at least share their problems. This is also a new model of society that kind of grow. I think we have a lot to learn from this period, but yes, young people suffered a lot from this period, and I think yes, on their general possibilities to, I don't know, have possibilities to invest, having possibilities to have a right education.
Yeah.
They were impacted on each of these
Yeah.
topics.
Education is something that's very important to mention, because with the current cost of living, with the current developments of it, it's something that's going to keep increasing, the cost of living, and it may allow certain students to drop out of school to help support themselves or their families. So obviously this is something that is not beneficial for their careers in the long term. They may find a job temporarily, but they may not work towards their own passions and their own career prospects. So again, it's a vicious cycle, because this creates mental health issues and more lack of confidence and more anxiety. So it's a vicious cycle that needs to be broken in some way.
Yeah, and like we were sharing about education before, those people who just left the system, what have we done, or the system done for them to get back if they want? I don't know, probably it will create some more issues.
As probably the only intervening comment I'll make, I definitely relate to a lot of what both of you just said.